can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. So good morning, everybody. If you're just walking in now, if you can grab some seats up here, please, that way, as people come in behind you. Thank you. I guess that'll work. I'm going to give a minute for some people to trickle in just so we can adjust the seating. We're very particular with the seats, and that's why even if you came together, we split you apart, because if you were squeezed together, then you would be breathing directly on the chair that's in front of you. So we had 16 months to plan how we were going to do seating arrangements. So that's the best we came up with. So if you're just coming in now, if you can come towards the front, please, if you don't mind, just grab an open chair. Thanks. Because then what ends up happening is then the last like 6 people, they all cram in the back corner, and we try to avoid that. So it's so much fun policing the seating. It's the reason we started the temple, to tell people where to sit. It's funny, anytime I bring things up like this, you always run the risk of like somebody like being offended by it. So I don't mean offense by this. So please keep that in mind. That should actually be an asterisk before every class I lead. My temple life, monastery life, going back to 2005, you would pile anywhere from 100 to 2,000 people into one space, and depending upon the event and the day and things like that. And as you came in, so like if you walked in first, you would sit there. If you walked in next, you would sit there, etc. And it's a silly little thing, but the practice of the Buddhist teachings is to go beyond this mind that discriminates wants, needs, desires, likes, dislikes. How many of you walked in and said, I don't want to sit there, and then you sat there, right? It's these little things that we don't recognize that we do throughout our day that actually cause us suffering. Now, if you're just thinking about like, why does where I sit cause me suffering? It doesn't, right? But it's the same mind that says, I want to sit here. Did everyone go through that process when they came in? All of you did, right? You didn't walk in and say, you know what, I want to sit back there, so I'm going to sit right here. Everybody chose where they want to sit. And it's a silly, simple little practice, but again, anyone in this room like to control things in their life? Okay, so it starts with recognizing these little kind of subconscious things that we do without even becoming aware of it, such as choosing every single thing we do. So the seating arrangements for me, when I got into that experience, was really cool because it completely took away one of the first things I wanted to do, which was like, where do I want to sit? We go to a movie theater, we pick where we want to sit. We go to a sporting event, you pick where you want to sit. You go to a concert, you pick where you want to sit, right? Unless you're like crashing the party or something like that, then you take any seat you can. But it's these little things that it's always interesting when I introduce these types of practices to a predominantly Western audience that didn't grow up with these types of experiences, how it doesn't sit so well with us, right? Because it's seemingly taking away your what? Say again? Choice. What do we all cling so tightly to? Our choices. Because our choices to us represent freedom. Freedom to us represents liberation, happiness. You know what also causes so much of our suffering throughout our day? What was that word? Choice. How many of you spent more than like 2 minutes thinking about what you were going to wear this morning? Right? Again, these things aren't meant to these are not attacks or accusations or how dare you spend more than 2 minutes thinking about what to wear. These are realizations that we begin to see that what Buddhist practice is, it's not a temple. It's not necessarily a sutra or another language or another country. It's not even meditation, right? It's recognizing throughout our day how wrapped up we are in these things that stem from ego and self. That's what causes so much of our struggle throughout our day. So when you live in an environment where you wear the same thing every day, you're told where to sit, you're told where to eat. Now, if they told you to jump off a cliff, you don't do those things, right? But these things are really interesting to watch throughout your day. One practice, and then we'll start the meditation, that I've shared a lot in the past is, and maybe people aren't going out as often, but let's just say you're going to go eat today somewhere. When you sit down to eat, what do they give you to look at? Menu. Now, unless you have allergies or you're vegan or gluten-free or whatever, you could probably eat just about anything on that menu. But we still spend so much time thinking, what do I want? And the Buddha said we suffer because of what? Craving. So for some reason, from the clothes we wear, to the seats we choose, to the cars we choose, to the food we choose, to the people we choose, all of these choices, we think, well, that's okay. But now I want to learn about Buddhism. This is the major disconnect that people have, in my experience, in this country with Buddhism, is we want to keep all of our little personal freedoms and choices, and then we can't figure out why we're still suffering and struggling and being challenged. So let that kind of sit for a couple years and see how that works. So next time you go to a restaurant, just say, I'll take anything on the menu under $12 that is gluten-free. Whatever your restrictions and budget is, and see how that works. Next time you're going to get dressed, just grab anything, and put it on. That's uncomfortable, huh? It makes us uncomfortable. So that's how you find happiness in your life, is you cut through what makes you uncomfortable. And then you get to a place where nothing is uncomfortable. You're just grateful to be alive and be able to have clothes to wear. But again, that's so different from how we've been raised our entire life. Completely different. So I'm only asking you to change the things you've been doing your entire life. Not that much. You can do it. I have faith in this crowd. All right, so now we'll start with the meditation practice, because that's what most people want. So I want to make sure I satisfy your needs with the meditation practice, and then you can check it off your list. It's funny, I don't, see as many people as often as when we were open normally, so I have to, try to just cut through as much crap as I can in the hour that I'm with you all. So hopefully it's helpful. But just check the asterisks at the beginning. A couple of things I'll tell you before we start the meditation. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps sliding into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten, shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you're on a bench or a chair, also just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgment, just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands, or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen and you react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get, all of us. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Meditation is not necessarily fun. It's not necessarily easy. It is not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't fix that. It makes you become aware of your life being a mess. So you can then make changes in your life so things are healthier for you. It's an opportunity to slow down, to set everything down and just sit and just breathe and just allow yourself to be present with nothing but you and your own crazy minds. And that's a lot of fun. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything around us and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it is a practice. It is not a 6-week course. It's not a quick fix. It's not, I'm going to do this Buddhist thing for a year and then my life's going to be better. It is your entire life. It is your life. And what I spoke about at the beginning, and I'll just touch on this in a little more depth and then open up to questions. As we started meditation and my mind starts to wander back to the breath, starts to wander back to the breath. What it wandered to was 18 years ago when I first started going to Shifang Temple, the Buddhist temple down the street. And I walked in and there would be somebody at the door leading me in and telling me where to sit. I hated that for so many reasons. I'll break it down using the Four Noble Truths in a second, but let me just talk about it for a moment. I hated the fact that, so first, I got there early because, I just am someone who likes to be early to things. Well, that was the worst because when you get there early, what does that mean? You get led to the front seat. So then I had to strategically make sure that I was there early to be there, but that I wasn't really early enough to be led in yet. So I was there, but I would still kind of hang out. So then when I got led in, at least it would be a seat further in the back, right? So there I was with all my anger and misery and depression, trying to manipulate and control where I sat. That takes so much energy. And I don't know how many months it took for that to change, but I fought that for a while. But let's look at, for those who are maybe brand new to Buddhism, or for those who've been around it for 20 years, but still struggle with it, which would be all of us. The first thing the Buddha taught is the Four Noble Truths. And again, for those who are around Buddhist practice a lot, often there's this idea of it's the Four Noble Truths. I got to hear this stuff again. Yes, because we still don't get it, right? The first thing is the first teaching the Buddha taught, right? 35 years old, he sits down, the image above the exit sign back there, that's it. It's called the first turning of the Dharma wheel. And there's these 5 disciples and they see Siddhartha and they're like, there's Siddhartha. That almost sounded like a pirate thing, didn't it? It was 2 words that came out at once, right? He says, there's Siddhartha. It looks like he's figured something out. Let's go sit with him, right? And he taught the Four Noble Truths. The first thing he said is life is filled with dukkha, translates to suffering. Suffering is a pretty rough translation in the English language because it sounds so heavy and serious, like suffering. And we do have a lot of suffering in our life, and we also have a lot of just little things, mayonnaise on a sandwich that we don't like. But other words I like, or I've heard over the years, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, something just feeling not right. That we experience this every day of our lives. That's what the Buddha said. Your entire life, you're going to experience dukkha. So there I am getting led in by the volunteer, putting me to the front seat, or whatever seat it was. I was experiencing dukkha, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. I didn't like it. Therefore, I sat there really just uncomfortable. First Noble Truth, life is filled with that. Now here I am going to a Buddhist temple, trying to find a sense of peace and happiness in my life. And all the poor volunteer does is tell me where to sit, and I'm already angry, right? Life is filled with that. The second thing he says is, what's the cause? The cause of suffering is known as the 3 poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. So let's break this down in being told where to sit. Greedy. I want to sit where I want. I want the freedom to choose to sit where I want. I want you to not tell me where to sit. There's a lot of wants in that simple example, right? The second one is anger. Second cause of suffering. I'm angry. I'm angry because I feel like somebody is moving in on my territory, and how dare they tell me where to sit. So I'm angry because I want control. I don't want someone to take that away from me. I want to be completely in control because that worked for so many years of my life. All right. So now I'm angry. And the third cause of our suffering is ignorance, right? Ignorance doesn't mean you're dumb, doesn't mean you're stupid, doesn't mean you're not educated. You're ignoring the truth. The truth is, it doesn't matter where you sit at all. Now, I get it. These are very different times. I should have said this earlier, too. We have you spaced out for health reasons. We're in a pandemic. Maybe you chose to sit by a window. I get it. Like, those things are very valid. Wonderful. Please. I wish we could all be, well, I guess we could all be outside, but we're greedy and we chose to put you inside, right? So ignorance, meaning I thought it mattered where I sat. And it really doesn't at that time. So there's greed, there's anger, there's ignorance. There's the cause of my suffering. It is very simple when looking at the core Buddhist teaching. The third noble truth is the ending of suffering, liberation, freedom from suffering, or suffering less, as I like to look at it. Wow, it sure would be nice to show up to my new Buddhist temple I was going to and not be miserable before I even started anything. That would be the ending of suffering in that example. That would be wonderful. And the fourth thing he taught is the Eightfold Path. He said, this is the path to ending suffering. Having the correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. Those are all on Google for free. You can look it up. But even just looking at the first couple, and they do go in order. The first thing is having the correct view. This is the path that ends suffering. My view was that I and my ego and my stubbornness and my pride had this view that I needed to choose where to sit. The second on the Eightfold Path is the thoughts. My thoughts were, you're wrong, I'm right, I'll sit where I want. I remember them even telling me to, like, early on, tell me where to sit. I'm like, no, I'm okay, I'll just stay back here. And I get it, it's not about making you completely uncomfortable, but I'll wrap this up in a minute and hopefully it'll make sense. So my thoughts were, now I'm upset because somebody was telling me where to go. Speech didn't really apply there because you stay silent other than when I was telling them that I'll decide where I want to sit, not you. And then your action, etc. But it really is the views, the thoughts, and the speech in this case. Now, this might sound silly. Now, I want you to think about things in your life that actually matter, that are really important, that you're really attached to. People or places or things that you're attached to, yourself, your ego that you're attached to, things that matter. Me being told or asked where to, told where to sit doesn't matter. And that made me miserable. So imagine how much misery there was in everything in my life that actually had some level of importance to it. I like to look at these things as practice points in my own crazy head. That if I want to suffer less throughout my day, and I can't even move beyond being told where to sit, how am I going to manage with everything else that's actually important? If I have challenges with attachment in my life, or craving or desire, and I can't even, let go or surrender the control over what I want to eat or what I'm going to wear, then how am I going to ever find a sense of happiness in my life with things that actually matter? So I look at these as baby steps. And they're really difficult baby steps, but it is cutting through our ego. Right? And I talked about the clothes earlier. I remember spending hours shopping for the perfect clothes, spending so much money to buy the perfect shirt, trying different ones on for like 45 minutes just before I even left the room. How does this one look? How does that one look? Does this one look this way? I lived that life. It was miserable. And then you end up in a monastery where you're given gray pants and a gray shirt, and you're given 2 sets, and they say, you're going to wear this every day. Man, that was so much easier. Not to mention how much time it saved us. But again, it has to do with letting go of control and our effort to try to influence the people around us, because we think what we look like and what we wear matters. These are difficult things to overcome because our entire lives, everybody has told us, most parents don't dress their children and say, you look terrible in this, let's go, right? Remember the movie Big Daddy, Adam Sandler? Remember when he lets the kid get dressed for school? He puts on like flip-flop or swim flippy things. He's got like the, what's that, snorkel mask?
Scuba Steve.
Huh? Scuba Steve, thank you. Right? He doesn't care what people think about him. He just likes Scuba Steve and wanted to dress like Scuba Steve. If we like wearing what we wear because we like to wear it, that's one thing. If we like wearing what we like to wear because we think it's going to influence or impact other people in some way, then that's something we really need to work on, to practice. So, the Buddha taught our sense of self is why we suffer. And that we, as well as everything else, are impermanent. We come together for a period of time and then we will cease to exist. How many of those hours do we want to spend worrying about trying to impress other people? So, just stuff to ponder. And this, to me, is what Buddhism is about. It's bringing it into your day-to-day life, the things you actually do. So, with that, I'll pause and just respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind, and we use the rest of the time for that. So we'll open up to questions. Yeah.
I feel like this is a good question, but I really struggle with keeping my mind blank with, things I have to deal with and also things that you've said make me think of certain things. But then I have to, coming back and trying to push those thoughts out. So I just wondered if I meditated every day, would that process get easier?
No. So let me just repeat the question for our millions of YouTube followers. For the first part of your question was, I feel like this is a goofy question. And so one, there are no goofy questions. I give you credit for asking a question even when you thought it was goofy, but there are no goofy questions. So please don't ever feel that there's like advanced questions versus like goofy questions, right? All questions are valid and wonderful and important, whether I respond to them or not. The part about the mind, and you said you feel you struggle with the mind going blank because things I say make you think, your to-do list, things you have to get done make you think. Will that ever get easier? I think is how you said it, with time and doing a meditation practice every day. And the reason I responded no right away was just let me back up from that. The intention of doing a meditation practice is not to go blank. So let's just start with that for you or anybody here who's new to meditation. Your mind is never going to go blank, ever. There's one time and one time only, and ultimately not even then, but just for conversation's sake, let's just say one time that your mind goes blank. When is that? When you die. Not even when you're sleeping. When you're sleeping, your mind is just as crazy as it is when you're awake, right? So our mind is always going to race. It is always going to ponder and think. That's what our mind does. If you go into meditation thinking, now I'm going to stop my mind, you're missing the entire purpose of meditation. Meditation is to recognize your mind, but to not get stuck with it, right? The example I give always. So here I am sitting in meditation. Thought arises, hunger. Recognize it, release that thought, back to breath. Breath in, breath out. That's what I'm working on. Breath in, feel the breath in, breath out, feel the breath out. That's what I'm trying to do. Just observe sensation of breath. Hunger, there's that thought again. Release it, back to the breath. What I don't want to do, thought arises, hunger. I'm hungry. I want to eat. I want a burrito. I'm going to go to Pokies. I want chips, I want cheese, I want sauce. Now from one single thought of hunger, I sat there for 5 minutes thinking about a burrito I want to eat. Now I'm hungrier than I was 5 minutes ago. And I still don't have a burrito. So now I'm angry, right? So it's important to understand that your mind is never going to shut off. But the practice is to recognize, there's a lot of metaphors with planes, right? As a plane gets closer and closer over your head, what happens to the noise? It gets louder. And as it goes away, it gets quieter. Let your thoughts be like planes flying over your head. Just don't get on the plane. Because then you're going to sit there and, create your list of things you have to do. So your entire meditation practice is going to be like the game of tug of war, where you're just pulling one side back to the other, one side back to the other. Does that make sense? This is not easy to do, but it intellectually hopefully makes sense that one, to understand you'll never go blank. And that's kind of why I said no, because your whole life, you're always going to have a wandering mind when you meditate. What might get easier, maybe to give you some hope so you don't give up already, what might make it easier is to understand that in time, the more you practice this, it does get easier to recognize, oh, there's that thought of laundry I have to do. I'm going to come back to the breath. I'm going to leave it alone. And then right after that, there's going to be another thought. I'm going to leave that alone, come back to the breath. So that in time can at times get easier, but I don't like to encourage it that way too much because I don't want you or anyone to have this goal set. Like, okay, it's been 6 months. How come I'm still having thoughts? Right? Because then you're just setting yourself up for failure. Treat every meditation practice as if it's your first time. Like you've never done it before. So that way you're not comparing it to anything. And again, like I talked earlier, this is not about what we do in meditation or what we do at a temple. It's about our lives. Have you ever been angry about something for 20 years? Right? So what are you doing for 20 years? You're thinking about it over and over and over again. And when did that thing happen? At least 20 years ago. But here we are making it real and alive today. Right? So that's why we're practicing training the mind to be present. So we don't spend our whole lives telling ourselves stories about all the things we hate. Because when you tell yourself stories all day long about everything in person you hate and dislike and aren't okay with, you know how miserable you feel all day long? Not so good. So, I mean, it'd be great if we sat around thinking about all the wonderful things in our lives. We could try that once in a while. So, hope that's helpful. Other questions? Yeah.
You had said that, like, if you're dressing to impress people, like, you should probably look at that and work on it. What if, like, you like how you dress, but you're also doing it to impress people?
Yeah, and so there's a fine line there, and I don't want to spend too much time like trying to break down the philosophy behind the ego and all that stuff. I mean, that would just be my ego trying to break it down anyways, but I don't want to spend too much time doing either of those things. I think the real question to explore, your question is, what if, like I said, you like dressing a certain way because you like how you look, but you also like to look that way for other people. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the question to ask yourself honestly is, okay, well then why do I like to look this way? This is what's called in Buddhist teachings conditioning. We have been conditioned to think that looking a certain way means something based on, our entire life's exposure to marketing and advertising and TVs and commercials and billboards. You know how many billions of dollars are spent telling you what to look like and what to wear and how your hair should be and what your shirt should be and what weight you should be and what height you should be and what color your skin should be. All this stuff is spent telling us what we should look like. So the real question is, do we even know why we like that? That's the first thing. And there's no answer to that. That's just a question I'm throwing back at you to explore. Does this really make me feel good, or does it make me feel good because my whole life people have told me that's what I should look like? The second thing to explore is test it out. And so the practice that I throw out very often, some people are even, fun enough to try it. Do you wear socks often? Yes. When you put on your socks, do they typically match? Yes. When you fold your socks or put them in, do you have like a sock drawer? And are you someone who rolls them up or puts them together or has little initials on them, or how are they in your drawer?
They're all in there. I just roll them up.
So the pair of socks is connected together? Yes. So I have a challenge for you. What's your name? Say again? Sayun? So here's your challenge. When you get home today, whatever time it is, I know this is going to be rough, but I want you to go to your sock drawer. And I want you to undo all of your socks. Unravel them. Can you handle that? Yeah. And then, this is a 2-step process. Then next time you go to get dressed, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to grab 2 socks. And if you're lucky enough to get 2 that match, I want you to do it again. Until you get 2 socks that don't match. And I want you to put those on. Not under jeans that cover them. And I want you to go into public with 2 socks that don't match. This sounds like the dumbest thing in the world. But again, this is how I approach Buddhism. The Buddha taught very clearly that we suffer because of craving, desire, attachments. And yet we crave and we desire and we are attached to what socks we have on our feet. And yet we show up here day in and day out, week after week, year after year, and we can't figure out why we're still suffering. And we're still attached to wearing 2 socks that match. Right? Can you try that?
I will.
Will you report back?
I will.
All right. I look forward to the report. And it might make you a little bit uncomfortable. And anybody else in here who didn't ask the question, you are welcome to try this as well. It's uneasy. Who already just thinking about it feels like they're going to be really uncomfortable putting on different socks? Let's be honest here. Okay? It's really awkward. Do the socks that don't match mean anything? No. And in fact, you already know that they're socks that you like because they're in your drawer. So think of it as a bonus. Wow, I get to wear 2 socks that I like at one time. How phenomenal would that be? But the difficulty is going to be what? Other people. Other people might see them and think you've completely lost your marbles. And then you can just blame it on those Buddhists. You got to blame something on them, They don't get blamed enough. So, all right. Any other burning questions that you have? Or if not, yeah, go ahead.
Did you find that your life changed a lot? It was hard to function in normal society or anything? Because I found today's practice I'm kind of new to this. I found today's practice particularly uncomfortable.
Yes.
For this sense of the hole in the donut type thing. It feels as though I'm concerned that this journey of trying to explore Buddhism, that almost it's like discouraging.
Yeah.
Sort of. Like, it's like you come here to feel good, and then it seems as though you're faced with bad, and a sense of feeling wrong.
Yes. I got chills. The way you express that is the exact heart and core of how I view bringing Buddhist teachings into your life. And I'll close with this thought. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I'm sure it wasn't, you're already uncomfortable for 50 minutes, and now you had to try to express that level of discomfort, right? So I thank you for doing it. And your name? Hallie. Thank you, Hallie, for saying that and expressing that so well. A couple things I want to highlight. I very often, I didn't say it today, but when I talk about things along this line, I very often will say, I don't want anyone to feel like they're bad or doing things wrong. It's not about being a bad person because you wear socks that match. It's not about being a bad person because you spend time putting on a nice outfit. These things don't make you bad or wrong, right? I'll get to the other part of your question as well. These are just moments to recognize how stuck we are in patterns and conditioned behaviors. And the Buddhist teachings is really about liberating us from what causes so much of our suffering, which is our own crazy head that is stuck doing things out of routine. The one thing I know for certain, unless you got dragged here, nobody explores Buddhism or meditation because things in their life are peaceful and happy and good. You said it yourself. You came here wanting to feel good. I don't take this with another asterisk. I'm not here to make you, Hallie, or anybody, Hallie, right? Or anybody else feel good. I'm here to introduce my understanding of Buddhist teachings that will help you make changes in your life so you can feel good out there and eventually never need to come to a place like this. Buddhist teachings is not the escape to make you feel good. Buddhist teachings to me is a mirror, and it forces you to look back at the cause of all of the challenges and struggles and difficulties in your life, which is your mind, right? You mentioned the word uncomfortable. What I'm talking about now is incredibly uncomfortable. It's a lot easier to just live a crazy, miserable life and then run to a day spa for an hour and feel better. And then what are you running back to? The crazy, miserable life. What I want is for people to explore these teachings so they can make changes in their life and never have to run anywhere, not have to escape. Is that you with me so far? And back to I think the first part of your question, you said, which I didn't get the metaphor, but I can work with it, the donut, right? Yes, it made my life the first couple of years. It didn't make my life easier. And I talk about that a lot too, that Buddhist practice doesn't make life easy at first because it's challenging you to live your life in ways that you've never lived before. Now, I'm not saying that you need to wear different socks your whole life, but recognize our attachment to how important it is to us that our socks match. Because that same thinking and that same thought process is there in other things in our life that is absolutely important. The first couple of years when I came back in 2006, my life was so difficult because I was now not wanting to live the way I had just lived for 30 years of my life. But 30 years of my life I was never happy. So did that mean I had to make changes that were difficult and for a while stop hanging out with people that I used to hang out with and stop going to places I used to go to? Absolutely. I had to drop all of that because I didn't trust my mind or my heart in those environments. And then I reached a place where it didn't matter who I was with or where I was, that I was okay wherever I was. But I had to remove things from my life to keep me healthy. And people and places and attachments and addictions and all these things. This practice forces us to change. And we're not always ready for that, right? So, not that what I just said makes you any more comfortable, right? But at least hopefully it helps you understand that, and not just for Hallie, but really for everybody, that yes, this practice, it should turn some things in you and make you feel a little bit like, wait, what? I got to be nice to people all day long? I don't like that. I have to let go of some of my ego all day long? I don't like that. I have to do what I want to do all day long? I want that. This should hopefully challenge you on some of those levels so you can actually make deep-rooted changes in your life. And therefore, the practice just is your everyday life. It's not an event. It's not a class. It's your life. So, thanks for asking and sharing. Yeah. All right, so we'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to the more than 4 million lives who've been lost during this pandemic, and to their family and friends who continue to suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a few quick announcements before you head out. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm the Dharma bum. We opened up this temple nearly 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just unenlightened practitioners, no different than anybody else. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different people leading. Thankfully, they're not all like me, or that would be miserable for everyone. But we have different people who lead every night, sharing a different Buddhist practice. We closed for 16 months. We opened up maybe 5-6 weeks ago. And so in person, we have Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Saturday morning. Our recovery sangha, any drug, alcohol, any addiction you may have, that is also in person Sunday morning and Tuesday nights downstairs. Everything else is virtual for the most part. So just check the website. Typically, we would see 600 to 800 people a week through here. And since we reopened, we're really limiting that. So we have a morning meditation Monday through Friday, 8 to 9. You're welcome to come for that. And then the temple's closed all day long, unfortunately. And then we open up again in the evening for class. Same thing, Buddha for You. It's closed during the week. It opens up for an hour before in the evening, and then now on Sunday, 12 to 3, it's open downstairs. But we appreciate you working with us as we're just grateful to be open at all. We appreciate you sitting, how we sit you, wearing masks, how we check you into the door. We hate all of that stuff, but it's what we must do to keep the people who come here feeling healthy and safe. So we're doing our best to accommodate people along those lines. So, again, I appreciate y'all being here. I wish you well. And I don't want to scare you away from Buddhism, but I also, for anyone else who might be new, but I also don't want people thinking that Buddhism is going to it's not what we see on TV. It's not the peaceful little happy people, because inside the peaceful little happy people were people who were miserable. And they worked really, really hard to get to the perception of what we see as these people, happy people. So it's a lot of work, but suffering sucks. So good luck. Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you? I'm staying away from people though.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. No, you're good. Hi, Chris. Nice to meet you. First time here. Boy, you picked a fun one to come to for the first time. Nice to meet you, man. You're welcome. Good to see you again.